everybody, and welcome back to the GSL Up and Downs, where Code S spots are given away, but more specifically, this particular season we have wildcard group as well, so that's something to keep in mind.
Exactly. The third place finisher in the group will have another shot tomorrow at the wildcard group. There's the current standing. NesTea, Fantasy, and Huck, they won their first game, where Center, Finale, and Flying are 0-1.
Yep, 0-1. Not a good place to be to start things off. There's a lot of room to grow here since we're only done with our first 3 sets. Our next match is going to be a real treat.
Oh yeah.
It's Fantasy versus NesTea, Terran versus Zerg.
I'm not sure if my body is ready, Wolf. That game is going to be epic. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a grudge match. It's a rematch of the OSL game that the two of them played 5 months ago.
Yeah. And how much has NesTea brought his skill back up, and how much has Fantasy learned? This is really, I feel, a battle of, in some ways, the old and the new. But when you look at it that way, it's like Fantasy's the old in StarCraft 1, NesTea's the old in StarCraft 2, and Fantasy's now the new. But this is the new NesTea. I don't know what we're gonna see, man. This is gonna be crazy.
You're starting to confuse me.
I know. I'm confused myself. I can't even believe we have these two players in the group playing against each other.
Well, we have them in the up and downs, and we are going to jump into the game in a few seconds. Daybreak is the map for Zerg versus Terran. It's SKT1 Fantasy versus LGIM NesTea. We are ready, and they are good to go as well. Let's jump into the game at the GSL Up and Downs Group E. Brought to you by Colorado. To the top right starts our Terran player. He was able to take out Finale in his first game today. In his second, will he prevail? Here's
SK Telecom T1 Fantasy.
Fantasy. I'm getting rid of those rules in the next break. What's up with that? This is always in the background.
Bottom left of the map, we have one of the strongest Zerg, the most accomplished Zerg in Korea. He's starting blue for LGIM. Yes!
LGIM NesTea.
NesTea is what everybody aspires to be. Everybody looks up to this guy. There's a reason for that, and it's not just his haircut. Fantasy going for a proxy here.
An Alive Rex that we see.
Yeah.
That's a style that Alive started against Protoss, not against Zerg. If you build the barracks across of this small abyss, then you can get another one in your main base. If you see your opponent is going for a very greedy opening, you can always try to punish him. And if not, you just fly the barracks back into the main base and you're fine. Question is, how exactly does Fantasy follow this up? Is he just trying to fake NesTea out? Or will he go straight into the second barracks? And as you can see, NesTea is already preparing here.
Yeah. NesTea is going for gas.
That is so cool now. You know, guys, we have here this rematch from the OSL round of 16 where Fantasy and NesTea met. That was back in the days when NesTea was a bit in a... It's weird to call NesTea being in the slump at all, but he didn't do as well as we were used to from him in these days, and Fantasy kind of manhandled him. He won on Entombed Valley. Now we have the game on Daybreak, and NesTea starts with a build that goes not only into an early pool, but also into gas, whereas we're usually seeing a hatch first in this matchup.
Exactly. So NesTea, you know, normally when you had a play like this from a Zerg player, a Terran player might actually just kill that neutral depot and wall off the bottom. We've seen that before. We've even seen NesTea die to Beyond, luckily spawning on a map with no neutral depot doing a build like this. But in today's current state of the game, NesTea's taking a slight risk, but it's not that big of one, considering that hardly anybody does this anymore. And NesTea's got the game sense here to figure this out. Now, he starts Metabolic Speed, the boost upgrade, Metabolic Boost, the speed upgrade for the Zerglings right away, and
you know, this is going to be really cool because now we are in a situation where Fantasy does not have as many Marines as he usually would have, and he goes into double gas as well, so we don't see a barracks following up here. And NesTea has a lot of options. He can go even into Banelings. He doesn't mind gas anymore, so he's just going for the fast speed. And I'm still wondering if he really built all of this only because he didn't see the barracks right away, or if he, from the beginning, planned to be a little bit more aggressive. But as it is, it turns out to be a very good opening for Fantasy here. NesTea will have speed, he will have the map control, but what he does not really have is this early economy lead that you want to get.
A really nice micro, by the way, on NesTea's Zerglings when he went up the ramp. I just wanted to point that out, made sure he didn't lose a single one, and also still got as much information as humanly possible. NesTea is still, after all, just a human. Don't be fooled. But
You're lying right now.
listen, I know a lot of the followers of the Church of Stemkoski are talking about ST and all of his disciples, like Younghwa the Great, but remember, they're all just human. But
Yeah, I actually think that the Church of Stemkoski dropped that one.
yeah, you know, they used to always come by my house, knocking on my door, I'm taking a shower, I get out, and they're like, telling me about all these builds, and I'm like, listen, I've already seen them, you know, I'm a GSL commentator.
They have this book in front of them, the Zelnaga Watchtower.
Yeah, it's just, it hurts me.
Well, we have the starport now for Fantasy. NesTea goes into the third base, but how things started here, he has still the speed advantage, so he can currently dominate the map. Nice, a great Marine here placement for Fantasy. NesTea no chance to get into the main base. And just looking at the harvest account, we have 28 against 24. Of course, by now the mechanics of the Zerg player are going to start to kick in, and NesTea just has to make the decision, when do I retake gas? He's already mining again, so he can go into a lair tech. He needs an evolution chamber at some point to deal with potential Banshee harass.
That's something that we are going to see, because the Banshees are going to be ready. We saw Center had the potential to go Cloak, but decided not to. And we'll see how NesTea's response differs in this particular game. He starts his Baneling Nest just to be safe, but he does need those Evo Chambers.
And one of the things I want to point out where there's not a lot of aggression going on in this game is give those two players also a little bit of exposure. Guys, if you use Twitter, make sure to follow both of them, especially when you're a Terran player. Follow Fantasy, of course. He's one of those few Casper players who has a Twitter account. His Twitter account is SKT_Fantasy. And on the other hand, of course, we have also our Zerg player in this game with the Twitter account. He's LGIM_NesTea_. A little bit of a different Twitter account here. I think someone just took his. You can always follow the two of us, at ProxyWolf and at Kaldor. Make sure to send us a tweet if you have something to mention about the cast as well. And currently, as you can see, Fantasy is just shaping up to be a little bit aggressive. The Cloak upgrade, he has those Hellions on the ground, can already start to damage the Queens a little bit to give the Banshee an easier time later on.
Yeah, and so far that was a really good trade for Fantasy against the Lings. He seems to be a bit concerned. The Overlord will see the Cloak, and this immediately triggers NesTea to start Spore Crawlers, 2 of them. I feel like Fantasy's being a little bit passive with his Hellions, in the same way that Center was. Center ended up getting rewarded for it because NesTea wasn't able to kill them, he was able to deny a lot of creep. But now he's going in and he realizes, wait a minute, you don't actually have anything here. A good attempt by NesTea for this round, but Fantasy's micro is actually just too good. He kills every last Sling. He will have to get out of here. Loses a lot of Hellions, but the trade I feel was worth it with the little drones he killed. He still has a few Hellions on the map, so his map presence is not lost.
And guys, we talked yesterday about how people are watching the GSL, and a dear friend of mine just tweeted a picture on Twitter. I just retweeted it. You can either check it out at Caldo or you go to @NaniwaSC2. Naniwa, of course, watching out and checking the games of his dear friend Huck today, so you can just see how he watches the GSL. I feel that's something that's pretty epic that people will talk about in quite a few years, so definitely make sure that you invest those 2 seconds.
Yeah, make sure you do. These Banshees invest about 5 seconds to kill a Queen. And now the drones are going down. Yeah, there's a Spore Crawler here, but as long as Fantasy micros properly, which we've seen him do in the past already against the Queen, he needs an Overseer, and he's not actually making one. He's just going to rely only on the Spores. A bigger problem for NesTea. The Banshee's now in the natural. In total, so far in this game, he's killed 10 Harvesters, and he hasn't lost his Banshee yet. There finally goes down the Overseer. He has to make... In total, I want to count these Spore Crawlers because this is another way of counting how many drones are lost. When you look at all the Spore Crawlers, count them right now, he's actually made 6. That's 6 additional drones lost that he paid money to lose.
That's a lot that he invested here to be safe against the Banshees. And the thing about Fantasy is he doesn't split those Banshees up. He just goes in and takes with one shot of both of them, one drone at a time. So as long as he can keep them alive, that's a very dangerous situation for NesTea to be in. And Fantasy could later on even decide to split the both of them up and go into the natural, maybe the third base and the main. So at this point, a lot of Harvesters killed already, 11 in total killed by Fantasy, and the Terran player is at 60 SCVs. He is now going into +1/+1, Siege Tech is coming up, whereas NesTea is going for his trademark style, he's jumping right into the Spire Tech.
Yeah, this is what he's known for. This is what he already showed us in his first set of the series, of the group, I should say. See how he continues moving forward here. Fantasy doing exactly what we saw from center earlier with that Viking. Going for an Overlord hunting spree down to the south. This is always one of the catch-22s of playing Zerg. You always want to have your Overlord spread to spot for drops, but you also know that they're eventually going to be killed by that Viking. You have to keep him there, because if you don't, if he skips a Viking, goes for a faster drop, you're going to lose to it. I mean, you're going to lose something to it, at the very least, and you have to lose your Overlords no matter what, so this just kind of sucks for NesTea.
NesTea is really in a bad spot. He has a lot of gas available, but the big problem for him is that he is so far down in supply. So Fantasy, with all this aggression and with his map control, was able to just put NesTea into this awkward position where he's on 3 bases, but he's far behind his opponent in actually army supply. And the upgrades, they are better for NesTea, but look at this tab, just 46 army supply for NesTea, 61 for Fantasy, the harvester count dead even. This is not a situation that you're comfortable with as a Zerg player. Not at all.
Not even a little bit.
But those 14 meter lists, they might be able to change things.
Yeah.
This is, of course, when suddenly NesTea has this strength. This is what his build was leading up to.
Exactly, and now Fantasy is going to have to respond. He starts a second factor now. Obviously, he has the armory already, so he could drop some Thors out here. He doesn't, as far as I know, see the mutas just yet. He barely missed them with the Hellions. They will be shown. In the main base, there's only 1 turret. Nothing at the natural. No turret at the third base. I take it back, there's one at the very edge. But with this lack of turret coverage, Fantasy is definitely going to have to make more now that he's seen this. This is not just 8 mutas. He's seen much more than that. That Viking is so lucky. The Banshee's still lucky over here at the bottom left as well. NesTea got a no-fly kill order, but now he's actually vetoed that because he's NesTea. He's like, oh, I'm just gonna kill him anyways. I don't care what Coach Kang says.
Saving his Overlord here. Good guy, NesTea.
Yeah, he says, I'm not gonna let that Overlord die. This is what I gotta do. Sorry.
This is not Ohana, but still.
Yeah.
So the swarm for NesTea means family.
Yeah, we should take a moment of silence for Ohana. Now that we've done that, NesTea goes across the map, cleans up the watchtower. Forcing a lot of stims here from Fantasy, and Fantasy is making a sensor tower right now just to be safe. I feel these players are so evenly matched. This is such an exciting game we get to watch.
Yeah, at this point, NesTea is getting a bit more of a grasp on this game in in terms of map control. Fantasy is at 180 supplies on 3 bases, but now NesTea is starting to macro it up quite a bit. He's going into the 4th base. He has still all these additional upgrades that he's going for, +1 attack upgrade for his Mutalists. We have him with a lot of drones now as well. He's going into 11 additional ones. This is nearly 80 drones for him, 120 Zerglings. He's controlling the map at this point. Does not have the Hive tech yet, and he's just now going into the Infestation Pit because he wants to go to Hive. He needs +3/+3. He also needs a high attack later on. In upgrades for their army, they are dead even. At least as soon as Fantasy completes those 2 upgrades that we currently see on the production tab, which will be in a few seconds.
Yep,
and here comes
go.
NesTea. He moves in.
So good for Fantasy that his upgrade's finished, but this is an awkward angle for Fantasy because his units are back in time to defend, but the Banelings, oh, NesTea with another passive mistake with his Banelings. We saw this last game.
Yeah, that is a bit unfortunate for him. With the Baneling control today, he seems a bit off, and he's not facing center here.
Yeah.
Against a newcomer like Center, he might be able to get away with those mistakes, but against an expert and, of course, also a veteran like Fantasy...
It's absolutely not going to be okay, man. He's got a Thor that is shutting down his mutas. Something I want to note about Fantasy's bunker, he had 2 bunkers, so a lot of times players will only have 1. Then when the Banelings blow up on the first bunker, the Lynx can come in and kill the SCVs, but Fantasy's second bunker helped clean that up. Now Fantasy's army supply is 136 to 98. That's 38 army supply ahead. And he's moving forward. He's going to go for a big push here. He's got enough siege tanks to keep his Marines alive. NesTea is desperately trying to figure out the best angle. He's got a lot of creep spread.
Another big problem for NesTea is going to be the +3/+3. I think you already mentioned it. Here comes the big fight, though. He's going in with the Banelings, and this time there's so many of them.
And
even the tanks can't stop them.
Yep.
He's in a corner,
And all these medevacs are going to take some hits.
Not only some hits, he's gonna kill most of them. Where's the Thor? Does he have a Thor in the vicinity that can help out? No, only a few Marines, but they are enough to save at least half of them.
That was exactly what NesTea needed after that botched engagement at the third base. Surrounded Fantasy, trapped him in the corner. And with the amount of mutas that NesTea makes versus other Zerg players, that would have been a different situation if NesTea only had 8 mutas, for example, or if he had only 5 to 6, then Fantasy would have been able to pick up most of his Marines and escape, and he knew he couldn't do that. He knew he had to stay and fight to some degree. Greater Spire is already on the way for NesTea. He holds map control. He can actually take the 5th right now with the amount of creep spread he has, but he's playing this a little bit more cautiously.
He doesn't have a bank here. He's going into +3/+3, but Fantasy is so much faster with these upgrades. Another issue is once again the drone count. 90 at this point for NesTea, and Fantasy is at 63, which means that with both of them are maxed out, which is about to happen in just a few seconds, Fantasy has 30 additional army supply. And this is something that NesTea should worry about. Adrenal Glands coming up now. He's starting a few spine crawlers, but this push is not going to be easy to hold.
It's really not. I have to say this is a great drop defense by NesTea, but I'm worried for Fantasy because NesTea knows exactly what he's doing. He's got the awareness of where this army is, and he's going to have to move forward perfectly, inch by inch, step by step, because if he makes one mistake, NesTea is going to punish him hard. He's got a great army composition.
And he's building up this bank now.
He's going to catch
building the
reinforcements
bank,
too.
and he has the lava available, 34, and here come those Lings. They are running in and taking down Marines and Siege Tanks alike. Well done, and this is of course horrible for Fantasy. Losing the reinforcements here, not what he was anticipating.
Exactly, and he loses a lot more than the reinforcements now the Lings are going through. Yeah, NesTea's going to lose this hatchery, but he has another hatchery already on the way to replace it with so many Banelings to support it. So NesTea is going to do some damage, and Fantasy has to make a choice.
This is not only about Fantasy's natural, this is about the production that he's going to lose if NesTea is able to get into the main base. Fantasy is supply block. NesTea just completed Adrenal Glands. Those Lings are even more dangerous, even though they don't have +3/+3 yet. And they're going into the net, into the 3rd base.
Yeah, Fantasy makes the choice to turn around here temporarily, and then now goes for the base here in the middle. He wants to try to grab NesTea's heart, but he doesn't split against the Banelings, losing a few Marines here. He will be able to kill his base, but his push is significantly weakened. Problem for NesTea is that he didn't micro his Lings at the 3rd base. He lost all of them. The 3rd base still survives, and now Fantasy's on 3 mining bases. So is NesTea, but he's down in supply.
It is time for the Broodlords. He's going into Broodlords now, morphing 9 of them. He's still at 66 Harvesters. We have him with +3/+3 nearly completed. Both of them at roughly 140 supply. But the big problem here for Fantasy is he might have more army supply, but he doesn't have the better economy anymore.
Well, NesTea's being really cute right now. He started 1 faster. Now he starts 3. And those infestors are actually going to be really useful to him since he was able to keep the siege tank count relatively low. More and more Vikings being produced for Fantasy right now as he adds additional starports. So Fantasy knows what's up. He knows what's coming next.
He knows exactly what's coming. And even though he lost one of his bases, he has the gas. He still has the gas, 1,500. But here comes NesTea. NesTea is on the move right now. And, well, Fantasy's answer is a drop play, which is always smart if you're up against a Zerg player who has Broodlords. You want to try to circumvent his army and put pressure onto his income. But how can he stop this drop? Has he the Viking count? No, he doesn't. Only 2.
Yeah, not a lot. This is NesTea's main tool in his box of tools to get back into this game because he can use these Broodlords to control the center of the map while he takes his island expansions. And now the Broodlords are a little bit exposed, though, to the Marines. And where are the Infestors? They're a little bit like-minded. They're even blocked by the Queens here. This is absolutely great for Fantasy. He takes out every last Broodlord.
This is horrible by NesTea. This is not what he wanted to do.
And more Infestors walk into siege tanks. NesTea has just lost this game.
NesTea did definitely not watch what was happening there. He had all those Broodlords in the wrong position. Fantasy sees a chance, moves in with the Marines, has the assistance of a few Vikings, and takes down Broodlord after Broodlord. Not a single one survived, and suddenly NesTea finds himself with a back to the wall.
He finds himself with his back to the wall. He loses another Infestor. He loses the hatchery. GG!
Wow, I did not see that one coming.
Talk about sudden death. That was a rough engagement for NesTea, and Fantasy capitalized on those Broodlords being out of position. His Queens really slowed down the Infestors. They actually blocked them. If the Infestors had been there, he'd been able to fungal those Marines, which did not have really very much siege tank support, and would have actually been able to clear them up and then keep that pressure on the planetary.
And now suddenly we have Fantasy with a 2-0 overall against NesTea, counting his OSL match as well. Well done here by the SKT1 Terran player. Fantasy He just saw a chance and he took it. NesTea, a moment of inattention, lost him this game, lost all of his Brood Lords, and well, from this point on, there was no hope for him anymore.
Yeah. And at that point, he already was long distance mining from the base to the top left. He was trying to remake his hatchery. He lost too much economy, but then he had the Brood Lords, and that was the key. The Brood Lords could have gotten him back into the game, could have allowed him to not only pressure his opponent's fourth and keep him on the back foot, force him to make all his Vikings, so NesTea could maybe prepare a transition while he gets his economy up. But when he lost them all, he had no economy and no Brood Lords. What do you do at that point? You just roll over.
Yeah, Fantasy presenting himself to be a very strong contestant in the group today. He takes the 2-0 lead early on. And of course, we are going into our next game now, which is Terran versus Protoss. With Flying, after his loss against Huck, now meeting Santa, who lost against NesTea earlier.
So these two guys need to take a win here, because if you go 0-2, you can still get out, but you don't want to be in that situation because it all varies based on your opponent's positions in the group. And we talked about this already. You don't want to pull a hero where, yeah, even though you're coming back in and you take all those necessary wins, you suddenly are in a position where, oh, too bad, so-and-so didn't win, and so now I'm in Code A.
Yeah, you want to have it in your own hands if you advance or not, and this is, of course, what both of them want to. So Senna didn't look too sharp against NesTea, made a few mistakes here, but still, he's a very inexperienced player when it comes down to playing here in the GSL in the studio. He did very, very well in Code A, defeated strong opponents, defeated Seed and Beyond. Now he's up against Flying. Against NesTea, he was not able to win, but maybe he can take down the Casper Protoss player. Flying versus Hawk with a push that didn't work. One base Colossus arrived a little bit too late at his opponent's main base. So right now we have this Terran versus Protoss game on Abyssal City of all maps.
This is a pretty tough map for Flying, you know, and we haven't seen this matchup from him yet today, but in the past I've seen him in the late game with really great decisions. The problem for him is getting to the late game is not going to be a path that Center lets him take easily. If he puts pressure on Flying's potential third, Flying is not going to be able to take it without perfect forces, may even have to make cannons. It's all about the composition that Flying chooses.
And we are going into the game now, guys. We're going to find out who takes this win and who will be on 0-2 after the match. Senna is up versus Flying, Terran versus Protoss, GSL up and downs. Brought to you by Caldon Wolf. Let's jump into Abyssal City.